Welcome to the After Dinner Minute, the podcast for stories I tell you at dinner. We are Christian women in Western Australia sharing honest stories with other women. I'm your host, Beck, and if you like what you hear, please subscribe to our weekly newsletter for honest stories in your inbox on Wednesdays. Today's guest is Amy Stopher, who's also one of our regular writers. Hi, Amy.
Hey, Beck. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. So tell us, Amy, what does a typical week look like for you? What things make up your week?
Yeah, so I work full-time, so that probably takes up the biggest chunk of my week. The ministry team at Providence City, which is a church kind of close to the centre of Perth. And so on Sunday is a big day. That's kind of the start of my week. We've got 4 congregations at Providence, so I don't go to, but Sunday is like a big day. And then Monday to Thursday, I'm in the office, meeting with other staff, meeting with people from the church, planning and preparing, that kind of thing. And then, Friday, Saturday are my days off, and I love to spend time with friends and family or garden or go to the beach, hang out with my dog, that kind of thing.
That's lovely. What's in your garden at the moment?
I actually have figs ripening on my fig tree, but they're itty bitty. My figs are so small, and I can't work out why. They're like perfect. They're juicy and lovely. They're just like miniature. I'm like, I don't know, is that a variety thing or is it just like a water fertilizer thing? So I asked my neighbour, who I thought might know, and she's like, I don't know. So we'll see.
See, I have figs, but they're growing and they look to be decent size. They're green. And then small children come along and pick them off and throw them away. They don't even eat them.
Oh, that's so sad.
So angry.
That is so sad. I'd be really cross. The other thing that's in my garden at the moment, but that's not ready yet, this is the other thing I'm really excited about, is I have dahlias growing.
What?
And I this year have got into flowers, planting flowers. So
Me too.
So I had heaps of ranunculus in last spring, but now it's dahlias. So sadly, only half the tubers I planted actually produced a plant, but I've got a bunch. So I don't know, I felt like I planted them early, but they're still not flowering yet. But I'm excited about those.
They're so fiddly. I made Zach plant me. So I was like, I can't say that it's truly mine, but I made Zach plant me.
Perfect. That's what I need.
I made him plant me proteas and Geraldton wax because I was like,
lovely.
I want to have a cut flower garden. I want to make bouquets and then still eucalyptus leaves. I still live from my neighbour. They're not aware of it.
They're good options though, because they're not they're rejuvenating plants rather than things that you cut and then they're gone.
Yes, and they're very cheap because once you own the plant, they're so expensive if you buy them. Like proteas.
Yes, totally. Yeah, I do sometimes go for a walk with my secateurs in my pocket to verge nearby. It's not anyone's house. It's just on the main road where there's this massive Geraldton wax bush, and I'll just refuse things. I'm like, this is just a verge plant. I'm sure this is fun.
It's communal. It's a communal bush.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. I also do that to my park. I'm like,
sure. Yes, I would not do it in a national park, just putting it out there. I wouldn't do it in a reserve.
No.
Verge. I'm going to go to a verge.
Yeah, I was like, the council runs my local park. It's fine. I'm like, they're going to chase me down after this episode. How dare you take secateurs to the park? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. So Ames, tell me, what is your favourite book, TV show or podcast recently?
Oh, can I talk about 2? A book and a podcast? Okay.
Yes.
My favourite book is, my favourite book from last year is a book called Tom Lake by Anne Patchett. My only disclaimer is I have a terrible memory, and so I really enjoyed it, but now I can't remember if there's anything in it that was dodgy. So warning, I don't think there was. I don't think there was.
Tune out the dodginess. Nothing to do with me. It's fine.
Yeah, that's right. I think I don't tend to like books like that. So anyway, but I'm pretty sure. Anyway, it's this lovely story kind of told from the perspective of one woman, but jumping back and forth from kind of the time she was a young adult and kind of emerging into the world, I guess, as an adult, and then jumping kind of forward to the time when her own daughters are that age and just kind of seeing the thread that runs between them of
Ah,
place and relationship and that kind of thing. So just a really
that's
beautiful story.
cool.
Yeah, I like Anne Patchett, but some of her novels I have been like, oh, that's a bit strange. Like she's got some interesting kind of premises for her books. This was like really just
I,
beautiful and lovely.
okay, I hear that because like I tried to pick up an Anne Patchett. Maybe it was like the Dutch House. The Dutch
Yeah.
House. I don't even know. And I read a bit and then I just lost interest.
Mm,
But the one you're saying sounds really nice. It sounds a bit like Pachinko, which is
I
like,
haven't read that.
oh, it's really good. It's like
Is
three
that?
generations of this Korean family in Japan, and like the Japanese like
Ooh.
don't really like the Koreans, and they run all like the gambling parlors, which is
Oh.
Pachinko. Yeah, it's really great.
Ah. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm looking for a book to buy for a plane trip, so maybe I'll see if that's, in the airport bookshop. Buy that one.
maybe, maybe.
Um,
Tell me the second
or is
thing.
it's a podcast. So my favorite podcast of all time. This is kind of a bit dated, but they recently put out a new
Don't
episode, which
care.
is what's got it front of mind. So there's this podcast called Home Cooking, and it's like a bit of a pun because it's about home cooks, like what can you cook for your family, for your friends. But it was originally released at the start of the pandemic, and it was just 4 episodes, and it was like we're all at home, and so let's cook. What are we cooking? And it's the thing that I love about it the most is it's these two friends, a guy called Rishi Hirway, who's like a podcaster. So he's behind West Wing Weekly and Song Exploder, and he's a great podcaster. And then he's friends with a
Ooh,
woman called Samin Nosrat, who wrote the book Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, or whatever order those words are
I
in.
love that book. I love it.
Yes. And the thing that actually makes the podcast amazing is their friendship, because Samin has this
Aww.
fantastic laugh, like the best laugh, and Rishi can make her laugh like on command. And so the thing you get to enjoy is their friendship. And so it's a bit of
Mm.
episodes, and the thing they do is they get people to send in voice notes, and the voice notes like, hey, I panic bought 3 kilos of lentils. What am I going to do with them? And then it's Samin kind of helping you work out, here are all the different ways that you can cook lentils. That's delicious, and you can do it without going to the grocery store.
That's so great. I have no idea what to do with even one lentil.
Yeah, I reckon, I like a few lentils, but if I had 3 kilos of lentils, I'd need some help. So it's great.
Well, leading on from that, I'm going to ask you, how did you become a Christian?
My parents both became Christian as teenagers. So, Dad was from a kind of a church family. Mum was from not a church going family, and they both became Christian as teenagers. Took us to church when we were growing up, uh, very consistently. Highly recommend. They just were like week in, week out. Didn't matter what was going on. We went to church. They served at church, and it's just
Aww.
like a very kind of consistent part of our life growing up. And so kind of wanted to trust Jesus. I don't really remember ever thinking I wouldn't trust Jesus, but I reckon my faith kind of became my own when I was in year 12. A bunch of my school friends invited themselves to church. And it's really kind of looking back, I'm like, it actually was this magnificent thing. So probably half a dozen plus friends just were like, can we come to church? Not even in a group all
Whoa.
together, like from different kind of friendship circles. And yeah, they over the next year or so, a bunch of them became Christian. And as they started to follow Jesus, I had
Whoa.
to work out kind of what I believed, because I had, they were asking questions, and I did the same course that
Yeah.
they were doing. And so by the end of that process, I think I had a much clearer sense of what it meant to follow Jesus. I think I grew up knowing that Jesus died for my sin and had absolutely no idea what those words meant. And
Mm.
by the end of that kind of maybe year or two, I had a much clearer sense that that meant I was actually forgiven and that I could have a relationship with God. And yeah, and it's just kind of gone from there.
Yeah. I love that, like, just so many people coming to church. That's just so beautiful. And you've got that chance to, like, this is my family's faith, but, like, what do I really think about this? What do I really, like,
Mm,
really
mm,
sit with that? Yeah, with
yeah,
people who are doing the same. Like, what an incredible
yeah,
opportunity.
yeah. And it occurred to me today, someone brought it to my attention, unhelpfully, that I left school 25 years ago, and which is wild. But not all of those people still trust Jesus, but a bunch of them do. And I actually saw one of them last
Wow.
week. I don't see her often. She lives down south, but saw her, and she is this great encouragement. We had such an encouraging conversation about their church and how they've gotten involved and how she's taking initiative to do ministry there. And it's not been an easy year, but just seeing her, this woman who is wise and godly, and her husband too, just fills my heart with joy. Like, I just think, what an amazing thing that
Yeah.
God did in calling all these people to
Yeah.
know Jesus. Yeah, and what even more wild is, like, so she became a Christian when we were in first year uni, I think. And then, like, 10 years later, two other friends we went to school with who were good mates of hers also became Christian. Just like that long, slow friendship. I don't know. Yeah,
Wow.
it's very
That
cool.
is just, it's so encouraging where you're like, it's not all of those big moments. And I mean,
Mm,
even like just how you became a Christian, like I think
mm,
I became a Christian as a teenager and now I am I'm raising kids and I'm thinking about like, how can I share this with them? But like, I'm like,
mm,
I don't know. So I love
mm,
those stories where you're like, oh, like it is just in the day in and day out, like just getting to
yeah.
see what faith looks like.
Yes, I'm really thankful to my parents for that. And yeah, and I look around at people at church who are doing their best to, raise their kids to know the Lord. And lots of the time they feel like they're not doing a very good job or they feel like they've made mistakes. But actually, I think most of the time they're doing all right, trusting their kids to the Lord.
Well, I find that encouraging because I'm like,
Yeah.
what am I doing?
Yeah.
Oh man,
Keep going. Keep
yeah.
going.
So
It's a
kind
really
of,
important thing you're doing.
oh, thank you. Um, so who is someone who's encouraged you in your Christian walk and why?
There are so many people, but I'll tell you about one, and that is she's my friend Irene, and I reckon the reason I'll talk about her is because she had an influence on me when I was at quite a formative stage of my life, and so I think I am shaped in lots of ways by her, in ways that I'm really thankful to the
Mm.
Lord. And I reckon a couple of the things that really stand out, she really wants to be like Jesus, and she has great patterns of reflection and repentance and faith. I had the privilege of doing that alongside her and having her share that with me about herself and also encourage me to have those same patterns. And I think that was very precious, having someone kind of share that. Just, I think it really taught me by her example to be like that, to want to be more like Jesus and to keep turning back and thinking, oh yeah, not that way, but this way, not that way, this way. And she kind of paired that with prayerfulness. And so can't remember a time that we have caught up and not prayed. So she's
Wow.
really instilled that in me, the value of praying with your friends, like in friendship, finishing a conversation that way, entrusting each other to the Lord. And then I just learned heaps of practical stuff from her as well. Like, I think I learned how to do hospitality from the hospitality she showed
Mm.
me, and then kind of I did alongside her. And so lots of the way I do hospitality is basically me trying to be her. And yeah, and I think that's kind of great. Like, think I can't remember where he says it, but Paul
'Cause-
says to a church, copy me as I copy Christ. And I think, oh yeah, I reckon that's what I did with her. Is I
yeah.
copied her in it and learned heaps from her example.
Yeah, my father-in-law says that. He's like, oh, more, if I try and ask him any question about like what do you think about this? Or,
Mm.
raising children, whatever. And he'll
Oh,
just be like,
yeah.
no, I think more that is caught than taught. Like, if it comes
Yeah.
to, yeah. And I was like, I love that. You're just kind of like, oh, I'm alongside you and I'm kind of like modeling myself on you in some of these ways that I don't know. Like, how
Mm.
old were you when you met Irene?
Mm. I reckon I would have been maybe 21. I think she was at the time in her early 30s. She had small kids. She's about 10 years older than me, I think, or just a little bit more than that. Between 10 and
Mm.
15 years older than me. So,
That's really not like,
yeah.
I love that because it would have really inquired, like, not inquired, required, like some kind of
Mm.
intentionality, like on both of your parts to be like, the church is just divided up into so many different sections,
Mm.
like, oh, the young families are over here and, all of that. And I love that there was that intentionality, like, we're going to catch up. I'm going to spend time with you and be like, well, how do you do this?
Mm.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
how do you walk with, yeah.
Yeah, it was. I'm really thankful to the Lord for that and for her. That church, I think that's one of the things they do really well. It's a multi-generational church where people do have relationships with people who are not in their situation.
Mm,
Yeah. But
yeah.
I think definitely worthwhile. And one of the things I love doing now, which I get to do in my job, is setting people up in those kind of relationships because I think it is so valuable.
Yeah. How do you like that is one of the things that I think Prov does really well. What kind of things do you think help in setting that up?
Do you know, I am very chaotic in the way I do it. So there's no structure. We're a big church and you'd think we'd be more organized. And I just do it like a ninja and I don't keep records. And so that's actually terrible because I've got such a bad memory that I'm like, don't ask me who's meeting with who because I don't know. But literally it's just I I'm just always thinking about matchmaking people essentially, and I'll be thinking who's a woman who's kind of further along in her faith. You know, I think
Hmm.
about might they get on? Like, do I think they'll click? But also just like practical things like how close do they live to each other? Might
Yeah.
their availability sync up? And I'm totally happy for people to give it a go and be like, no, that didn't work, and let's try again. Um,
Mm.
but amazingly, like there are people who, I have forgotten that I've set up. And then, 5 years later, they're like, oh, yeah, no, we're still reading the Bible together. And I'm like, okay,
That's so great.
wow. And so I just think, I reckon one of the things is being willing to give it a go. And I reckon if you're the younger woman who wants someone to input, just be bold and ask someone, like, and they can say no, and that's okay. Just like be willing to take the hit. And like I literally told someone this week, I think you should invite yourself to dinner at that family's house once a week. Like set that up.
Yes.
And there's a
Yes.
context for that that means it's not super out of the blue. But I reckon that's a great thing to do. Like I have had that. I have a family that I have dinner with once a fortnight, and I've been doing it with them for like 15 years or something.
I
And like it's just that's
love
a slightly
that.
different thing, but it's like it's been amazing. So I just reckon be bold, have a go. And then
Yeah.
and just don't overcomplicate it. So literally I'm just like, just open the Bible and read some of it together and be like, I wonder what it means. Like literally. And I sometimes will meet with people and show them how I do it. But it doesn't have
Mm.
to be complicated. It's just like, let's open the Bible together, read some of it, see what we
Yeah.
notice, and then pray for each other.
I remember
And
you actually set me up with someone
what did
at
I?
Prov, like a girl who was a student, and you gave me like the David
Oh,
Helm book.
oh yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I remember reading it and being like, we can literally just like read it. So I was like, oh, we'll just like read it and just see. If I don't know, I'll ask someone else a question. And then I just continued because I'd done it once and I'd fumbled through. I was like, I'll just give it another go. And then I just asked people, like,
Oh, love that.
I'd ask like
Love
team
that.
and be like, hey, do you know, I'll need to find a younger, I need to find someone younger.
That's amazing.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, I
And
actually
then I'd
love
be
that.
like,
And
can you come
yeah,
babysit for me at the same time?
but that's actually part of what's beautiful about it, right? Is that, especially when it's an
Yeah.
older, younger dynamic, it's part of the benefit for both of you is kind of getting an insight into each other's lives, and it's part of what makes it beautiful. And
Mm.
yeah, and amazed that like I do give it some thought, but I point and shoot pretty fast. And God has done kind of amazing things where it's like I thought, oh yeah, that might work. And then it turns out that it worked in a way that I couldn't have anticipated, or they had something in common that I had no idea about, or yeah, I find
Yeah.
it very encouraging and think it's worth it. And so if you're an older woman who wants to meet with a younger woman and you don't know the young woman or you're not sure who to ask, like I just reckon if someone came to me who was like, not perfect, but like had been a Christian for a bit, faithful and was like, I want to read the Bible with a younger woman, I'd be like, okay, thank you very much. Like just, you're doing my job for me.
Yeah, when we got to the church where we are now, like it was much more like intergenerational, but then it still took a lot of intentionality to get to know
Mm,
women in different seasons. So like even when I set
yeah.
up playgroup, I asked our pastor's wife, I was like, do you know some like lovely older ladies? But I
Mm,
remember ringing them and being like, hey, I would like to get to know you, but I'm always wrangling my children on a Sunday. Like, I
mm,
need some help with playgroup on the face of it, but I'd like to get to know you.
mm.
But
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah. And I think
yeah.
especially like I now think of myself kind of on the older end. I'm one of the older women, but there are I think it's really important to honor the women who are older than me, the older women at our church, because actually they've got so much wisdom and experience, and
Mm,
they do get overlooked. We don't see the gift that God has given us in those women.
mm,
And I think wanting to think, oh yeah, how can we learn from them, and how can we know them and have them as part of our community? And because of one of my jobs at church, which is like, I'm thinking, how can they serve? Like, they're at the season they're
mm.
in, like, what does it look like for them to be a blessing in the church here? And that actually is one of the ways they have heaps to offer, is
Yeah.
to disciple younger women, especially if they've been
Yeah,
Christian for a long time.
100%. Like, share your stories. Like, how did you become, like, no one becomes like patient or kind or peaceful,
Mm,
like at the start. Like, if you look at
yeah.
little kids, like, we're just not. You're like, how did you, like, Sally Stark? I just keep telling myself Sally Stark's line. She's probably forgotten it, but she's patient little old ladies don't just happen.
Yeah, you got to exercise that. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
she's a great example of someone. Yeah, it's not complicated. It's just sharing your life with each other, pointing each other to Jesus, praying together.
Yeah. It's so
And so,
much
yeah, it's great.
it's stupid sometimes where you're like, it's simpler than we make it out to be. You're like, oh, there must be like this 5-step plan to do it exactly right. But in the end, you're kind of like, do you just want to come to my house for a coffee? We
Mm,
could read this, like,
yeah,
we'll just literally read this Bible. Like,
yeah, yeah. And
yeah.
I reckon maybe that takes a bit of boldness, like, because someone could say no, and
Mm,
that could be hard to take. But I reckon that's worth the risk. Like, it's only a very small risk. And like, probably if that is what they say, it's not personal. It's like they don't have capacity. And so it's not about you, it's about them. And so, yeah, I reckon
mm.
it's a risk worth taking. Like, if you were looking around at church and thinking, oh, that person there, I want to learn from them, or I kind of click with them, and I think that would be someone that I think would be great to meet with. Take the risk. It's worth
Yeah.
it.
I reckon even just being like, can we just read this one book together? Can we just do it for
Yeah.
a term? Like, that has been really good because then you're like, if it's weird, you have an easy out.
Yes, totally. Yeah, make it achievable. And just like circumstances change, you don't always have the same capacity. Or just
Mm,
like one of the girls I was reading the Bible with the last 2 years, she was a student and now she's going to be working full time. And
mm.
I'm not sure what that's going to look like this year. We have built this great relationship, and so I do want to keep in touch with her, but we haven't decided yet whether that will be reading the Bible or not. And that'll be sad, actually.
Yeah.
I'll If it changes, as it changes, it'll be sad. But I think it's good to name the reality and go, okay, this situation's changing. Do we have to change what we're doing? And just to kind of for that to be okay.
Yeah, we're sending you off well rather than letting this thing like kind of just weirdly fade.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Totally. And yeah, and I think, I mean, in there is a lesson which I think I find hard, but is part of life is also just like being open-handed and thinking, oh, okay, this has been a really good thing that I'm thankful to the Lord for, and I'm sad because it's changing or ending.
Mm.
And that doesn't mean that I will never see, this particular girl I think I'll keep in touch with, but someone else, maybe I won't see them very often, and I don't have to grab onto it. And, I
Yeah.
can kind of move on and trust that to the Lord and know that He'll provide for me and provide for them, and that's good too.
Yeah. I think there's something really like, I think this is a thing that I have been learning along with you, where you're just like, oh, I can really enjoy this and appreciate it while I have it.
Mm,
You can have something for a season and that doesn't make it any less beautiful. You can be like, I can really enjoy this
mm,
for a season and I can trust God when it goes, like you said, that
mm.
He will provide.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And I think that has really helped me, because sometimes the temptation is to cling on to it. And
Mm.
yeah, that's not always, I mean, sometimes that goes badly because uh, people don't always respond well to that. Like sometimes if you kind of get grabby, people like back off, and that gets weird. Or, but also just like, it does make things die a slow death. And to think, oh
Yeah.
yeah, this friendship that was once every day, every week, now is kind of from time to time, and it's still good, and I can still thank the Lord for it and enjoy what it is now.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So what is something that God's taught you, like through a hard season or suffering, that you don't reckon you would have learned otherwise? Like, what did you learn about
Mm.
God?
I think the season that springs to mind is a season maybe 10 years ago now. So maybe I was 18 months into pastoral ministry. So had been doing my job for, yeah, about 18 months. And we had literally just planted a church, or kind of, it's a bit complicated and weird, but left the
Mm.
church we were part of to become part of another church in a church plant kind of context. And I woke up one day and I thought I had gastro. I just felt really nauseous, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, this sucks, but this will go in 24 hours. And like 2 weeks
Mm.
later, I still was sick. And it turned out, and it was like, I now look back with clarity and be like, oh, that's what happened. But it turned out that I kind of had burnt out, and I experienced that
Oh.
physically predominantly in really weird kind of symptoms. And that made me, and there had been a build up. My mental health had declined and I was very anxious, but I was the physical stuff was what limited me, not the anxiety
Yeah.
itself. They were both there, but the physical thing was what kind of got me. I kept work, like I didn't know what was wrong. So I think I took 2 weeks of sick
Mm.
leave thinking it was like some kind of virus. And then I just went back to work. And at some point, I ended up going and seeing a psychologist, and he explained to me, I think you've experienced burnout, and this is what's going on in your brain, and this is how long it's
Mm.
going to take.
Mm.
And he said to me, he's like, I think it's going to take you at least 6 months to recover. And I was like, what? Are you talking, this, what?
Have you seen my schedule?
Yeah, 100%. I was like, and I think I just felt so awful and so limited. I remember little things like I just couldn't go out at night, and I watched every episode of a season of The Block, which I've never done since, just this one season. And I just remember thinking, like, watching them do it and be like, how are they doing that? Like, how are they getting up every day? Or like, I have this really distinct memory of
Yeah.
seeing Julie Bishop on the news, like such a random person, like a politician, and just being like, how are you running at 6 o'clock in the morning and then working a full day of work? I couldn't
Yeah.
imagine being better again.
Yeah.
And I remember going
Yeah. It's so
to
far away.
yeah. And I remember going to a friend's place for dinner. At that season, I was having dinner regularly, I think once a fortnight with some friends. I remember I was really struggling to trust the Lord. I think I had had a high capacity and found a lot of value, I think, in being competent. And all of a sudden, I was like very limited,
Mm.
and I didn't really understand what was going on. And I couldn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. Like it just felt like this was going to last forever. And I felt like I was
Yeah.
grappling with that. Like, what if this is my capacity forever now? And
Yeah. What if this never goes away?
yeah, what if this never goes away? And I remember I obviously had got to their house. I can't remember this bit, but I must have done this. I must have just kind of complained a lot about the circumstances. And at dinner, my friend prayed something about know how much God loved me in the Lord Jesus, and I was very angry. I remember being so angry.
Mm.
I don't know why it made me angry, but it felt like he was telling me the gospel in this prayer, and I was like, stop it. I didn't tell him I was angry. I don't think I've ever told him was so angry, but on the drive home, it was a real turning point because on the drive home, I was like, you know, this is really hard, but wouldn't it be a waste if I got to the end of it and I hadn't trusted God? Like, there's an opportunity here to learn to trust the Lord.
Huh.
Like, I'm going to go through this either way. Like, can't change that. And what if I get to the
Mm.
end and I've hardened my heart? Like, well, that's a waste. Like, and
Like I've wasted this suffering.
I guess so. I guess so.
Yeah.
And
What do you reckon
I'm
made you so angry?
so the thing that made me angry was not, I wasn't angry with God, I was angry with my friend. So it's not, I don't think I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
ever
yeah.
angry with God. I think I was angry with my friend because he'd pointed me to Jesus and I wanted him to wallow with me.
Oh, you're like,
And in,
let me be sad, and you're like, stop telling me about Jesus. Like I
yeah.
want to be
And,
sad.
and he actually did a great job because he let me be angry, he let me be sad. And it was literally just that when he said grace, he prayed for me that I would know how much God loved me. And I was like, stop it.
How dare you?
That's right. But yeah, I think that was probably a turning point. Like I came full circle pretty fast. So then it did take 6 months or more to get better. And it took like quite a long time after that
Yeah.
to feel like I was back to full capacity. Like 6 months later, I was like pretty good, but then it was probably another year or two before I was back to normal because I could physically feel it when I pushed myself too far. I'd be like, oh, I'm on the edge.
Yeah.
Um,
Like
and
what do you reckon helped in that time
I
to
think the
kind of
thing
help you heal?
I mean, God was very kind to me, and I think maybe the thing I learned about Him that sustained me, if you like, I became more and more persuaded that He was good. I guess I knew that about Him in my head, but in an experiential way, I experienced His goodness to me
Mm.
and kindness and provision, and He. So I think I became probably both more persuaded in my head that He was good, even though I was, having a hard time suffering, but also experienced his goodness through his people, through his kindness to me. A girl moved in with me and I'd never met her. She was like a contact. The day I met her, the day she moved in and I was sick, and she cleaned the flat for a rent inspection, having never met me before.
Oh.
Just things like that. Um,
Oh.
and so and she's actually now still a very dear friend. I'm very thankful to the Lord for her. So I don't know, just stuff like that. People cared for me, including Sally Stark. I was brand new at that church. That's when I first met her, and she was really
Oh.
generous. So I think just God being kind to me. And then there were also practical things like the psych I saw was very, very helpful. Helped me understand what had happened, why it had happened. And then he just said,
Mm.
it's going to take time and you need to rest. And he gave me some really good tips about rest, including things like, rest at the same time every week so that your body can anticipate it. TV's fine, but it's not going to let your brain do the thing that it needs to do. And so make sure you're doing things that are not screen related because your brain needs to kind of have a break and and that was really good. And it helped me. Basically, I had to learn that I needed to do less on the weekend. Maybe that's how I became a potterer. I needed to learn that I needed to have time on the weekend that was
Yeah.
I wasn't outputting emotionally. So just I had to learn a few grown up skills, basically, how to
But
rest.
I think that's really lovely where you're like, it's both of those things together. You're like, yeah, with it, theologically, you're like, I know that I really experience that God is good, even though
Mm,
like these things are hard. But also, you're like, hey, I'm in a body. God made me in a body, and I have
Mm.
to learn how to like to tend it and
Yeah.
care
Yeah.
for it. Yeah.
And accept that I'm a creature who's limited, and
Yes.
I do have I can't do everything I want to do. And sometimes the right thing to say is, I'd love to come and do XYZ, but the thing I actually need is to be at home. I think can be quite a hard thing to
Yeah.
say. I actually don't normally tell people, it depends how close I have to them. Normally I would be like, I can't, I'm not available, or I'm not free.
Mm.
And the thing that I've planned to do is to be at home without people, or without
Yeah.
doing things that are going to particularly output energy, output emotional resources. And I think that's okay.
And I think that really is. And I think particularly, yeah, those kind of roles where you're
Mm,
really caring for others and sitting with that kind of stuff, like you can't output like that all the time.
mm,
Like no one, like you said, like, yeah, we don't have that capacity. We don't, like, we have limits. You're like,
yeah.
yeah, God made you in a body. Like, he
Mm,
made us to sleep. We need rest. We need to eat. Like, we
yeah.
just
Yeah.
can't. Like, I feel this as much as I want to, can't do everything.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it's actually freeing in a way. I think once you get to that point, you're like,
Mm.
oh, okay, yeah, I'm not God. Oh, that's actually that's actually good. You know, this is not my responsibility. Like, I don't have to be
Yeah.
responsible for that. I can just be responsible for the things that God's given me to be responsible for, and I can let the rest of it go.
Oh, there's just such relief. You're like, look, you're
Mm,
responsible for your life. I can come alongside you for a bit, and then I'm going to go to the beach, and I just need to like
mm,
enjoy and rest, and that's
yeah.
it.
Yeah. And I think I don't want that to become a thing where I'm so self-protective that I'm not willing to serve people. Like, I think that would be the extreme kind of overreaction to it. But I think, yeah, I think, oh, okay,
Mm.
yeah, how do I serve people? How do I do the things given me to do in a way that over a long period of time is sustainable? Because there are little patches of life that don't feel sustainable. I'm sure when you have a baby, it doesn't feel like that's very sustainable. But so it's not that every day has to be the perfect balance of. I think that's kind of
Mm.
unrealistic. But yeah, just over long seasons to think, oh yeah, I'm running hard for a month. I need to make sure there's a break, or in a
Yeah.
normal pattern to think, oh yeah, there needs to be space here. And if for some reason there's not for a while, to then factor it in when I can.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I think you're really right. Like, it's just loving people is ineffective, and it takes a lot of time, and it takes a
Oh
lot longer
yeah,
than you think it's going to take. And, like the
yeah,
Christian life is serving others. But I
yeah,
think, like you're saying, it's that kind of sustainability.
yeah,
You're like, how can I can go hard and like, burn out, but you're like, well, that's not helpful for the people that you're loving and caring for the long run. If,
yeah,
you know,
definitely. Yeah, I think that's right.
no, I love that. Thank you. Thanks for like,
That's right. I want to turn the
so
question. How do you rest? Can I turn the question back on you?
yeah, how do I rest? I am historically bad at resting.
Hmm.
I started Sabbathing and I hated it. I had to write lists of things that would be relaxing, and then I went through and ticked them off. It took me a very long time.
That is
Uh,
hilarious.
it's terrible, but I have come to love Sabbath. I love it. So
Mm.
I go to church. Like, I sleep in, I go to church. Well, I mean, I sleep in, but whatever. Like, I don't get out of bed. Like, I return back to bed with my cup of coffee.
Hmm.
And, small children come in, that's
I was going to
fine.
say,
I go to
that's what you
church.
want.
Yeah, but I'm like, look, you can have some cartoons, you can climb in here, whatever. I'm not getting up. Here's a cup
Mm.
of coffee. We go to church. Then I come home, I have a nap. Like, we make it work. And
Yes,
then
loving that.
Sunday afternoons, like, we will drive like 40 minutes to the beach, like at like 4 p.m. Go for a walk along the beach, have a swim if it's nice, get pizza.
So
And
good.
I'm getting better. I'm not great at it, but I'm
Mm.
like practicing, keeping my phone in another room at nighttime and starting my
Mm.
evening and like having rest time when my kids are resting in the middle part of the day to be like, I
Mm.
will make myself lunch because that's what I would do at work. I sit down and make like an actual lunch and I might read a
Okay,
little bit of a book and just
that's
trying to be
great.
deliberate
Yeah,
about patterns of resting.
yeah, yeah. So good. That is great. I love that.
But yeah, I'm with you. It's just this ongoing process. You're like, well, if I continue to act like I won't have limits, I'm like, well, that's just stupid. And then I will hurt the people that I do care about and I do
Mm.
have responsibilities for.
Hmm. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. All right. Well, what do you reckon is a word of encouragement you can offer to a woman who is maybe been not listening to her body and furloughed by like something when your body just kind of given up and like, nah, you
Mm.
feel fine, but I've stopped. Like, what's a word of
Yeah.
encouragement you could maybe offer to a woman like that?
Yeah, maybe it is that thing of like, God is good. And so in the midst of that suffering, I think probably whatever suffering it is, it can be really easy to lose sight of that. But to think actually
Mm,
God is good. And maybe the other thing is like he loves you more than you can imagine. Like he just we don't know, we can't comprehend the depths of how precious we are to him. And
mm,
and so I think that's a thing worth kind of meditating on, kind of reflecting on in the midst of those things. Because you can feel like, what is God doing? Like, has God abandoned me? And to think, oh,
yeah.
actually, no, God loves me. Um, I remember listening to this talk by Alan Chappell, who was one of my teachers at Trinity Theological College, and it was a talk on Psalm. I think it's Psalm 77, but I always forget. I'm like 73, I think it's 77. The psalmist is crying out to God and he's like, where are you? Have you abandoned me? Have you forgotten to be good to me? Like, what is
Mm,
going on? And then, kind of halfway through the psalm, it turns and he says, this I'll remember when you brought your people out of Egypt through the sea with your mighty arm and it kind of reflects on the Exodus. And then it just ends very abruptly. It just kind of cuts off. And you're like, what? Did you forget to finish? Like, what's going on here? I remember Alan saying in this talk, he's like, the psalmist in his circumstance is in the darkness and he can't see who God is, his goodness, doesn't know, can't feel God's love for him. And so he looks back to this event in the past and says, oh, I see how you loved your people there. And so I know that you love me because you loved me. And I think he said, that's the cross.
yeah.
Like we know God loves us because we look to the cross and we see that he loved us in giving us his son. And so, what good thing will he withhold from us? And I think, Alan described it as a lighthouse in the darkness. So you're in the dark, you can't see anything, but you look to the lighthouse and
Yeah.
you see. And yeah, in the midst of difficult things, it's it's really can be very hard to understand what's going on, and it can feel like God isn't good, or maybe He doesn't love you, and to look to the cross and think, oh no, God has done everything I need. He's provided everything for me. Even if the thing that's very hard is your own sin, I'm precious to him. He loves me and he knows everything, my blackest parts, and yet I'm still precious to him. And I think that is a thing worth chewing on and reminding each other of.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I love that. I mean, there's something really in that where you think, if I'm a high capacity person and you're like, I'm always doing stuff, I'm doing stuff for God.
Mm,
But then, you're taken out at the knees and you can't do stuff.
mm, mm.
Yeah, I love that to be like, God knows everything about me and he knows all the worst about me and he still loves me the same. Like,
Yeah.
that's really beautiful. That's a beautiful note to end on, Ames. I love it. Who who would you nominate for this next? Who do you think would be really lovely to hear from or someone that encourages you?
Her name's Crystal, Chrissy. She comes to my church. And the reason I want to nominate her, so she's someone now, she's a good friend of mine. She's just become my neighbour, which is like the most delightful thing ever. She's moved in around the corner.
So great.
I actually became friends with Chrissy when we read the Bible together. And we used to read the Bible together at Lake Munga after work. So we'd both drive there after work and we'd hop in one of our cars, unless it was really good weather, but mostly it was not good weather. Like it was too cold, too windy, the birds were too
Yeah.
loud. And we'd hop in the car together and read the Bible and pray for each other. And we don't do that anymore. We haven't done it for years, but it became this lovely friendship. But the thing we used to joke about that at the time we used to listen to this podcast of these two girls who would record this podcast in their car. And so she was like, Amy, one day, what if we recorded a podcast of our chats in the car? Anyway, so I just feel like, Crystal, here is your moment. And she's someone who now consistently points me to Jesus and encourages me and challenges me. Like she will pick me up on stuff and encourage me to be more like Jesus. And I think, who doesn't need a friend like that?
You really do.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a few friends like that, and you're like, they are precious and rare. They are truly beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.